Okay, this is the route overview of the full Uinta bikepacking route for 2026. As you can see, it is 325.3 miles, roughly 32 plus thousand feet of climbing. Yeah, 27% paved, 73% unpaved. So that's a mix of single track, forest service roads, and some quiet country roads. So we'll start off here. Start is at City Park, leaving from the Miners Hospital in Park City, Utah. We will roll out on the bike path, leaving City Park. This is an old rail line, so this is the rail trail. Flat bike path leaving town. A couple road crossings here and here, just to be mindful of. Sharp right hand turn here. And then as we get off the bike path here on kind of a gravel path, and then it turns into kind of a steeper dirt road climb up to the first single track, and that's at about mile 5.5. So once you get to the top here, it's pretty much a descent all the way down to the entry of Jordanelle State Park, which this entry will be paid for already for all riders, so should be able to just ride right through. That's at mile 9 here. Then we'll hop onto the kind of Jordanelle Perimeter Trail. Starts off as single track, and then it will turn into kind of a gravel double track trail all the way along the reservoir here. There's some good steep up and downs, so this is definitely a little bit more challenging than you would originally think, but nothing chunky or technical there. First real good water resupply is here at this pavilion of the kind of information center, and this is at about mile 20. Once leaving the state park, we'll be on road for a little bit. Just a quick little stretch on Highway 32, but then we'll turn off onto River Road. This is a pretty quiet country road through the farmlands. Same all the way up through here, Bench Creek Road. And then mile 32 is a road crossing of Highway 35. So just, again, mindful of the busier roads. We'll get back on the dirt after we cross that road and get onto single track again at mile 33. This is a pretty mellow single track. Not ridden by bikes too often, so it's a little bit looser in spots. You encounter your first gate here. There's a few along the route, but yeah, just make sure we're closing them behind us. Yeah, we'll go through there, Pine Creek here, Pine Valley, and then we'll be kind of along the Provo River here on single track, going along the Mirror Lake Highway. But yeah, just try to stay on the single track here. It kind of few spots hops onto the road where there's like a little parking pull out areas, and then hops back onto single track. So just be mindful that we're staying on the single track through here. And then kind of the next water supply from after we went through that pavilion after the Jordanelle State Park is at mile 40.8. And this is a bridge crossing the Provo River, and you can walk down on the side of the bridge and get down to the river to filter water. And then at this point, we're kind of getting to the start of our first major climb. We've been kind of gradually going uphill for a while, but this is where things kind of kick up a little more. We're getting also into a bunch of dispersed camping, so this might be kind of an area where some people might think about camping the first night. Good climb all the way up to about mile 45, and then that turns into kind of a little bit more rougher, rugged dirt road up to the high point of this climb, which you'll get a really amazing view of the high Uinta wilderness and the mountains there. This loop is counterclockwise, so we'll be going up and around back to the same spot, and then here we got the aid station van for the grand depart here. I've kind of advised them to be kind of anywhere between mile 45, which is in this area, all the way until kind of here, 56. So expect them to be in this area. Probably not going to say exactly where they are, but they'll be kind of in that zone. And then we'll descend down from the high point there. There's a couple water options on that descent. The first one here at mile about 60 is a spring. There's a little pipe coming out into a cattle trough that you can fill up your filter and get water there. Or just before we get to Highway 35 here, there is a little bit more of a irrigation spring, irrigation creek. So you can see that's just before getting to the road. Then we will turn onto Highway 35. This is usually a pretty quiet highway, gradually downhill here, so kind of make it through this section pretty quickly. At this spot, you have a spot where potentially, if you're here early enough, you could make that's about 3-5 miles down to Hannah, where there's a little general store and a bar. So it's hard for me to believe that anyone will really make it there in time to get that resupply. So leaving Highway 35, we're going to be climbing up Blind Stream Road. This starts out pretty gradual and then gets deeper towards the top. But partway up that climb, mile 75, there's a stream that the road will kind of go over a few times. So kind of keep an eye out for that. It's a little bit hidden, so it should be just on the side of the road. At least in this spot, mile 75.3, there's a pipe coming out that had some pretty good flowing water. You'll reach the summit of the climb around mile 79.4, and then a pretty fun switchbacky dirt road descent down to Upper Stillwater. You'll definitely see this river. It's pretty good, decent sized river. Mile 83.5. Again, good spot to filter. We'll get down here. There's a campground here, as well as Visitor Center and Rock Creek Lodge. Not entirely sure if they're open that this time of year, but could try to give them a call and see what's going on there if that's needed. And then here, mile 86, we're gonna hop onto the Stillwater single track. This is pretty unmaintained, so this is gonna be pretty slow going, kind of on and off the bike. Again, this kind of follows the river here, so there's multiple spots where you could be able to filter water through here as well. And then the biggest thing to note on the Stillwater Trail is around here, mile 88.4. It's a pretty wet bog area. I've tried to find a way around it. It's no really good way, so pretty much have to walk through there. And then just after that, it's a little bit hard to see where the trail is going, because there seem to be some type of avalanche or landslide that's kind of taken out the trail in this spot. But the GPX track is exactly where I went to stay on the trail, so try to stick to that track as best as possible. Then yeah, you'll pop out at about mile 90 at Yellow Pine Campground, and that's a pretty good campground with some pit toilets and whatnot, and some water spigots. Should still be open that time of year when their ride is going through there. And then once we leave the campground, mile 90.3, we're going to be on Rock Creek Road. We'll be on pavement for a good stretch here, but again, this is pretty quiet. Not too much car traffic. Good little climb up and over. This is all kind of, after we get up this climb, it's all gradually downhill into Duchesne. You'll get to this little bit of dirt road, gravel here. Good little spot to kind of stealth camp. Looks like dispersed camp spots. Maybe not necessarily recommended camping here, but in a pinch, I would say this is the best spot after leaving Upper Stillwater and before getting to Duchesne itself. Road all the way into Duchesne, where have pretty good options. I think there's a gas station in here that's open till pretty late, and then opens back up pretty early in the morning. There's some hotel options and a grocery store and whatnot as well. Leaving Duchesne, we'll kind of get riding through Starvation State Park and some more kind of oil fields. So this is kind of decent gravel roads, nothing too strenuous or technical. Also a couple campgrounds along the route here, just off route by the lake. And then this is a pretty critical crossing to be cautious about. We're at mile 146. You'll see a little gate on the left side that kind of opens up between the frontage road and the highway. So you'll want to go through that gate, walk through the little field there, and then be very cautious crossing over. You'll descend down, you'll come to the Strawberry River here. It looks like would be a good spot to filter if you needed to, but the water does not look very safe. There's quite a bit of agriculture upstream from here, so I think it's relatively polluted. So I would recommend not filtering water here and waiting until you get to the Strawberry Pinnacles Resort. This is all nice and flat through here, nice gravel dirt road. And then yeah, Strawberry Pinnacles Resort here at mile 161. There's a nice little outdoor kind of kitchen spigot that you can fill up water here, as well as Strawberry River flowing through, if you can find a nice spot to access it. Again, still pretty flat through here, starting to gradually go uphill. Get this intersection, we'll stay left, crossing the Strawberry River. Another decent spot to filter water. And then yeah, start our climb up Timber Hollow. Nice, pretty smooth dirt road. You're kind of in a pretty tight canyon here, so it's actually, even on a pretty hot day, this is pretty shaded, so it's actually really nice. Kind of the first water access point, 171 up the climb. A little creek on the left side, and then yeah, you'll climb all the way up until about mile 180 and descend down. Nothing too technical about the climb or the descent through here. And then yeah, here at mile 189, pretty critical resupply off route. You will want to exit here. There's a pretty good additional dirt shoulder on the right side here that I typically ride in both directions to the Soldier Summit gas station. There's a sign there that says it's open 24 hours. You could definitely call ahead and confirm that that is for the store itself, not just the pumps. But that's a pretty good, solid gas station resupply. Get back out in the same spot, and then start climbing back up towards Strawberry Reservoir. You'll make this nice climb up to here, mile 198, and then hop back onto some single track. This is probably my favorite single track stretch of the entire route. It's downhill all the way to the corner here at mile 201. It's pretty fast and flowy through here, and then this lower section, there's some steep hillsides. The trail kind of gets pretty narrow, so just be a little bit cautious when traversing across those steep hills. And turn left here, get off that single track that's staying down the canyon, and turn left. There's a nice creek there that you'll cross over your ride through that you can fill up water. Then leaving the Willow Creek single track here, we will come to Willow Creek Guard Station. This is a snowmobile warming hut in the winter. It's open year-round, so if anyone's in an emergency or wants a little additional shelter out there, this is a pretty solid spot. Definitely nothing fancy or luxurious. Just two little old cabins that you can get into, and that's at mile 203 before you climb back up onto the ridge here. There, you'll have some amazing views of Strawberry Reservoir from up here on this ridge. And then eventually you will descend down to the reservoir itself, where you will link up to the Strawberry Narrows single track here at mile 217. I've gotten word that the local trail organization has been doing a lot of work on this trail, clearing out deadfall, trimming up the overgrowth on the side, and fixing some washed out areas. So it should be running probably the best it's been in a good number of years. So might get pretty lucky through there. Along this trail, there's a few little campsites that are pretty cool along next to the lake there. Here, mile 225, I think this is an area that they've gotten fixed and cleaned up, but this section was completely washed out, and you come up to it pretty quick on a little descent. So be careful in this area, just in case it's still washed out. Here, mile 226.3, it is kind of goes through kind of a creek area, marshy spot, so it has been pretty difficult to follow the trail through here. But again, they've been working kind of backwards from what our route's doing, so I know for sure that they've gone about 6 miles just towards the way that you enter trail, so this should be all cleaned up and nice through here actually. We'll get off the single track, you'll get to campground. You'll come through kind of a boat dock area. There's a little pit toilet with a kind of roof overhanging out front. That's where we actually hid out and camped out from a storm last year. Not in the pit toilet, but just out front where we had a nice covering. But there's also a campground here, first come first serve. There's actually a bathroom with a sink running water, so it's a good spot to fill up some water as well. Now heading away from Strawberry, we'll get up to Strawberry Ridge. This is pretty up and down, some good biking through here. Definitely a grind, and then eventually descend down to Daniel's Summit here, where there's a nice lodge, grill, general store, all that. Right before we get there, there's a gate it's a little bit bigger gate, but in the past you've been able to open it and close it. And then we'll get to the lodge. We'll click on here so you can look at the store hours real quick. So you got your general store and your grill hours. There's also a little hotel there as well, a lodge, so you can stay at if needed. Leaving the lodge, you'll ride to the end of this dirt parking lot. There's a main gate right in the front straight ahead, but on your left there is actually a small little gate that will open since this main gate is locked, so you can open that and push your bike through. Otherwise you would have to lift your bike up and over that main gate. Here, a little bit of single track through here actually, and then descend down. Another gate here that's locked to prevent motor vehicles from coming through. So this one, really the only option is to lift your bike up and over and climb over it. Yeah, another campground as you leave Daniel's Summit, and crossing Highway 40. Again, just be cautious. Then we're climbing back up towards Heber Mountain. A couple water filterable spots here at mile 259 and 263. Once we're up here, we're on a ridge line, and then we drop down. Center Creek starts out a little bit rugged and then smooths out towards the bottom. And then pavement, country roads into Heber City. Resupply wise in Heber City, I would suggest making it all the way to about here, mile 285.8, and then hopping on this bike path down to the Smith's Marketplace here, where there's a few options. Jersey Mike's, there's an ice cream store, a wing stop, Smith's grocery store, and then there's a Starbucks as well in that grocery store. Other than that, Heber City has pretty much anything that you'll need. So if you're desiring something else, you can find your way there. There's some bike shops and whatnot as well if you need it. And then leaving Heber, we'll kind of be riding through a neighborhood and then hopping onto the Coyote Trails single track. This single track's pretty mellow, starting out as a green and then kind of at the end a blue, a little climb at the end there, and then dropping down. Once we get off that single track, there's a bike path on the right side of the road that we can descend down, and then make your right hand turn here, entering kind of this Provo River fishing area. So here we'll just want to make sure we just stay on the route and go across the river there. Then we're on the Dutch Hollow single track, and now we're pretty much ending single track heavy here. So rest of the way, other than a few little spots like the Pine Canyon Road here section, we're pretty much just on some nice single track. So kind of climbing, traversing through the Dutch Hollow trails. Once we get off the Dutch Hollow trails and onto Pine Canyon, you can cross it and take the trail over to Pine Creek here and filter water if needed, then get back on route. Otherwise, climbing up Pine Canyon Road, pretty steep paved road here, but doable. And then we'll hang a left onto this trail here, and that will basically from there on keep climbing all the way up until we get to mile 314. Then we'll have a little descent down to the creek here at mile 316. Again, nice spot to filter some water. And then we'll climb the rest of the way up to Empire Pass. And just keep a good eye on your computer. Zoom in a bit in this section because there's a lot of trails through here. So I just want to make sure you're sticking on the right trail. Basically from Empire Pass, you'll be coming off of Bonanza Loop Trail, and then connecting to Corvair, and then from Corvair you'll get down to Mid Mountain, Little Chief, Johns 99, and Empire Link down to Daly Canyon. From Daly Canyon, we're pretty much home, sweet home. A little bit of gravel turns into pavement. Now you're riding through Old Town, Main Street, Park City, straight down Main Street. At the end of Main Street, when it starts to turn right to go back onto the bigger road of Highway 224, just before that you want to stay left on the bike path. You'll see a little pedestrian crossing, and the path's on the left side there. Then we're on the bike path that we started on, and finishing back at the Miners Hospital at City Park at mile 325. And that's the full Uinta route for 2026.